dim light of a restless city night, where shadows lengthened and whispers of danger floated through cracked alleyways, a police dog named Rex, strong, loyal, and fiercely protective, was making his usual patrol with his handler, Officer Jake Thornton, a cop known across town not just for his grit, but for the unbreakable bond he shared with Rex, a bond forged through years of training, countless nights on the streets, and a mutual understanding deeper than words. As they moved through the cold air, sniffing out trouble where it hid behind the veil of urban chaos. A notorious gang lurking nearby spotted Rex alone for a brief moment when Jake had stepped behind a dumpster to check a suspicious package. And seizing the opportunity, the gang members lunged at Rex with cruel intent, unaware that they were about to awaken a storm far fiercer than they anticipated. As Rex barked, snarled, and fought bravely, but took a harsh blow to his side that sent him staggering. And just as the gang closed in, Jake sprang out from the shadows with a ferocity that turned the tide. A cop with a reputation carved out of battles harder than most could imagine, whose voice was a weapon, and whose fists were justice incarnate, as he took down the gang one by one with calculated precision. His mind raced not with anger, but with worry for Rex, who lay trembling yet determined, refusing to surrender even as pain spread through his body. Because this dog wasn't just a partner, he was family. The heart of Jake's world beyond the badge and the street fights. The story that unfolded that night was one of courage and sacrifice. A tale of how a police dog's hurt became a rallying cry for a community, and how one man's toughness was tempered by a love that refused to let his friend fall. Even when the city's darkness seemed endless, from that moment, the streets would never forget Rex and Jake's story, the dog who refused to back down, and the toughest cop who would move heaven and earth to protect him. A story echoing through the alleys and hearts of all who believe in loyalty, bravery, and the unspoken language between man and dog, weaving through the city like a quiet promise that no matter the danger, love and courage would always light the way. And as dawn broke, the bond between man and beast only grew stronger, with Rex's injuries healing slowly, but his spirit unbroken, and Jake vowing that no gang or threat would ever harm what was theirs to protect again. This was not just a story about a dog or a cop. It was a living legend of resilience, friendship, and the fierce protection born from the kind of trust that can only be forged under the harshest of trials, a testament to the unyielding spirit of those who walk the shadows with courage in their hearts, forever ready to face whatever darkness comes next. As dawn painted the sky in muted shades of pink and gold, Jake cradled Rex carefully, his hands trembling ever so slightly with a mixture of relief and urgency, because the injury wasn't just a bruise or a scrape, it was serious. And Jake knew every second counted. The vet clinic wasn't far, but the ride felt endless. every bump in the road making Rex whimper softly. And Jake whispered words of reassurance, promises of safety, and unyielding love, all the while his mind raced with memories of their first day together. How Rex was just a rambunctious puppy with too much energy. How Jake had seen in him a kind of fierce spirit that no one else had. How they had trained through rain, snow, and endless city nights to become the perfect team. And now that bond was being tested like never before. At the clinic, the vet's hands were steady, but her eyes told a story of concern as she carefully examined Rex, revealing torn ligaments and bruised ribs that required surgery and weeks of recovery. A prognosis that struck Jake hard, but ignited a fire in him to fight harder for his companion. While Rex was being stabilized, Jake paced outside, his mind haunted by the image of those gang members who dared to attack his partner, unaware that they had unleashed a fury that would not be forgotten, a fury that would soon ripple through the city's underground and reach ears no one thought possible. Because Jake wasn't just any cop. He was a force of nature, a man whose reputation was etched into the stone walls of every precinct and back alley. A man whose loyalty to Rex was legendary. Word spread quickly through the police ranks, and soon Jake's colleagues were rallying behind him, not just as fellow officers, but as brothers and sisters in arms who understood the unspoken bond between handler and dog, who knew that this was about more than just a beating. It was a message, a challenge to justice itself, and it would be answered with the full weight of the law and the unbreakable spirit of those who fight in the shadows for peace. Meanwhile, Rex lay in the recovery room, his breathing slow but steady, eyes half closed, dreaming perhaps of running free again, chasing shadows, and standing proud by Jake's side. And Jake sat by his side, holding his paw, speaking softly of the future they would share once this nightmare passed, promising that nothing would break their team, that every step forward would be a step toward victory and healing. Outside, the city was waking to the news, whispers turning into headlines, and the story of the police dog who was hurt in the line of duty struck a chord with the community, sparking outpourings of support from neighbors, strangers, and even those who had never met Jake or Rex, but believed deeply in the courage it takes to stand up against darkness. Amid this wave of solidarity, Jake began his own quiet investigation, piecing together clues, listening to whispers from informants, and tracking the gang's movements with a precision born from years on the force. Each discovery fueling his determination to bring those responsible to justice, not just for Rex, but for every innocent soul the gang threatened. As days passed, Rex's condition improved slowly but steadily, his tail wagging faintly when Jake entered the room. A silent thank you that moved the hardest hearts, and Jake felt a renewed strength in that small gesture, a reminder that love and loyalty could mend wounds that pain alone could not. But the battle was far from over, because the gang, smart and ruthless, sensed the tightening noose and struck back with threats and intimidation, trying to shake the officers and community, trying to break the spirit of the very people they aimed to silence. And yet, with every threat, the resolve of Jake and his team only hardened, their unity becoming a beacon of hope and defiance in the darkest hours. In the quiet moments, Jake found himself reflecting on the journey, the sacrifices, the victories, the quiet moments of joy amidst chaos, and how Rex was not just a dog, but a symbol of everything good and brave in a world that sometimes seemed too broken, and how this story of hurt and healing would inspire others to stand tall against their own battles, to fight for what they loved, and to believe that even in the face of cruelty, courage and love could light the way. As the final pieces of the puzzle fell into place, Jake prepared for the confrontation that would end the gang's reign, ready to face whatever dangers lay ahead with Rex at his side. Stronger now than ever before, a team united not just by duty, but by an unbreakable bond forged in the fires of adversity. And as the sun set on the city that night, their story became legend, an enduring testament to the power of loyalty, bravery, and the quiet heroism of a police dog, and the toughest cop in town, whose hearts beat as one against the darkness. The air grew thick with tension as Jake and Rex prepared for the final showdown that would define not just their future, but the safety of the entire community, the gang's threats escalating into violent skirmishes that spread fear through the streets. But Jake's resolve never wavered. Fueled by every moment of quiet courage Rex had shown, even when battered and bruised, and by the countless faces of those who believed in justice and stood behind them under the cloak of night, Jake and a specially assigned team moved silently through the maze of back alleys and dimly lit streets. Every step measured, every heartbeat synced to Rex's calm but vigilant breathing, knowing that the element of surprise was their only weapon against the gang's brutal numbers and ruthless tactics. And as they neared the gang's hideout, the silence was broken only by the soft padding of paws and whispered commands, Rex's senses sharper than ever despite his injury, his loyalty guiding them through the shadows like a beacon of hope. The raid began swiftly, with Jake leading the charge, the team moving in perfect unison as they swept through the compound, catching the gang off guard, chaos erupting in flashes of shouting and scuffling as officers took down the criminals one by one. But the leader, a cold and cunning man known only as Hawk, slipped away into the depths of the building, forcing Jake into a deadly game of cat and mouse, the stakes higher than ever as Rex, despite his wounds, refused to be left behind, his growl fierce and protective, reminding everyone of the unbreakable bond that had fueled this fight from the very start. Cornered in a narrow corridor, Hawk sneered and reached for a weapon, but Jake's swift reflexes and Rex's powerful leap ended the threat in an instant. Justice served not just with the strength of muscle, but the power of heart, the very heart beaten through pain, fear, and doubt to stand tall in the face of darkness. As the gang members were cuffed and led away, the community's cheers echoed through the streets, a symphony of relief and gratitude that washed over Jake and Rex like a balm to their weary souls. A reminder that their fight was never just about law enforcement. It was about love, loyalty, and the promise of protection that a dog and his trainer carried in their every step. Days turned into weeks, and Rex's recovery was nothing short of miraculous. Each wag of his tail a testament to the resilience of the spirit and the healing power of care and companionship, while Jake found solace in the quiet moments, late-night walks, shared meals, and the simple joy of a loyal friend's presence, knowing that their story, though forged in hardship, was one of hope that would inspire others for years to come. In the end, the tale of the police dog who was hurt by gang members, but stood strong with the toughest cop in town, became a legend whispered across precincts and communities alike, a story that transcended the ordinary to touch something deeper within every listener's heart, a reminder that true courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph of love and loyalty against all odds, and that sometimes the smallest paw prints leave the biggest marks on our lives, guiding us through the darkest nights toward the dawn of a new day.